Welcome to the State of the Awesome Address for 2017. I want to start by thanking everybody for the continued support that you give the show, whether you're a patron of Turbo or just a regular average Joe viewer who continues to watch us through thick and thin. Our continued success and being able to do what we love is all because of you, and we thank you so much for sticking around with us and hanging out with us. And we hope that you'll come with us and hang out with us in Japan. There are big changes coming to the show, and that's what I kind of want to talk about today. Before I start, I just wanted to let you patrons and turbos know that if you had, to make sure that if you're close to $50, if you're close to getting that turbo tee, which we give out to our turbos that renew every year, remember you're a turbo for life if you pay us that $50. But if you renew that turbo ship, you get that free t-shirt, that exclusive tee with your name printed on it. It might be a different design this year. We're not sure what it'll look like, but we want to make sure it's special and has your name on it. So if you're like at $45, I just want you to make sure that you get that extra $5 in so that you're not short. So that you'll be. By the way, also those tees are going to go out on a sort of opt-in basis this year. It was really hard for Becky to track down everybody and get everybody responding to her. So more details will come on that. If you're looking for that tee, that'll all be sent out. And you'll be able to get all the info. I mean, I'll announce it more later on. We'll make sure we broadcast it on all channels. Thank you. So now let's get to the stuff where I talk about how important your financial support is and how little YouTube's support matters to us. I guess probably a lot of people were expecting me this year to speak out about the YouTube debacle, the advertiser gate, and then the demonetization stuff that was happening. Yes, the answer is yes. As I've said sometimes informally during post shows, we were affected by that. It's not doomsday though. Yes, we were affected, but it's not like those old days where, you know, we've had doomsdays on this show where YouTube revenue, a lack of YouTube revenue caused us to need to batten down the hatches and appeal to you guys for help. But it's not a thing anymore because you already are helping with the godsend that Patreon ended up being. As I announced once on the show, Patreon outpaces YouTube revenue. And now it's gone to a point where it's not just outpacing it, it's starting to grossly outpace it. It's getting to a point, we're not quite there, where I toy with the idea of turning off all advertising on YouTube, just to say, fuck YouTube, fuck them. Fuck these guys who really don't seem to care about the creators anymore. And just use their bandwidth for free and not let them get a cent on any of the revenue. Obviously, we would be giving up a substantial piece of revenue, but I feel like, you know, again, we're not there yet, but if it keeps on this downward trend that it has been on, it's a possibility for the future. So that's one thing. But let's talk about Japan and how we want to bring you guys with us. When we were in Japan, it really does, it's a very far away. And if you didn't know, by the way, the show is moving to Japan, and maybe I should link to that announcement video. If you're a very casual viewer, you might not have known that. We're moving to Japan, and the boys are not coming with us. That's a big downside to this move. But I just wanted to mention that while we were there on our last trip, Becky and I felt a distinct need or desire to do a show. Like when we were there, we wished that you were there with us in a way. And when Becky was feeling especially like homesick or like fish out of water, she felt it more than me. Where she felt some of that travel anxiety. I was like, do you think that, like, you know, if we did a show, if we had the capability, if we were able to do a show right now, that it would help? And she's like, yes. And we were realizing what a comfort you guys bring us just hanging out. Yeah, we butt heads sometimes. Yes, we have our fights, but the chat, the amorphous blob that it is, can be annoying to old Fresh sometimes on occasion, but for the most part, we get along, and I really enjoy your company, and I love doing the show. I love doing what we do. So if there was a fear in your mind that, you know, this show, as it moves to Japan, that we were going to get distracted by the new format, the new things that we'll be doing, we're obviously going to be doing a lot of travel vlogging, and more on that later, but the show is still going to continue strong, and this is the core of what we are. Video Games Awesome is what Becky and I are. And you're going to see a lot of stuff that like we've been kind of missing out on this year because of this weird... You know, when you make a decision to make a big move like this, it kind of feels like you got one foot out the door. And for that reason, we haven't started any new major long hauls. Like Phoenix Wright hasn't been started. And it also feels like we've been winding down the show in a way that like shows have been a little less, let's say, jumping in with both feet. You know, like we don't have any major long hauls planned, and we don't want to start any before we leave. We want to get as many shows with the guys in as possible before we go. But anyways, one other thing that I need to mention is the show is going to slow down a little bit now because there's that other show, Awesome Video Games, that we started a Patreon for and got substantial support for. I think it was at $1,600 US per episode. You would think that would be motivation for me to get off my ass and just fucking shoot the thing and get some episodes out. That's a lot of money. But it seems that the money doesn't matter to me anymore. Honestly, obviously, money matters. Obviously, I want money. But ever since we've become comfortable, ever since we've been able to get to the point where we don't live hand to mouth, and there were some days like that for the show. In the early days, we really did just pay the bills, just pay the bills. And there were some times where we were like, Jesus Christ, like, can we really do this for a living? And there were times where we were wondering if we could. That's all turned around in the last few years, all thanks to you guys. And that's, again, a big thank you to you guys. We're comfortable now, and we feel financially secure to make a big move like we are to Japan. But what was the point of this? Oh, yeah. So $6,000 a month, $6,000 per episode potentially from AVG. I've talked about this before, how when I released that trailer for AVG Awesome Video Games, and I'll send out a more substantial update to our backers on Patreon about this coming up soon because we're about to start shooting. But anyways, the reason it's taken so long is that I shot that trailer, I cut that trailer together of all the episodes we'd created, and Old Fresh started to get a little bit proud. I started to really be proud and excited about what I'd created with that show, and what originally was going to be something that we just fucking got done. I was like, you know, they want it, they want to pay for it, let's just fucking get it done. And I started to get a little bit, you know, really obsessed with the idea of pouring my heart into it. And so, in a way, like, the great grand undertaking that it's become in my mind has put off the shooting of AVG. And what's come to, I guess what's made it really evident to me over the course of the last year that I've tried to get to the point where it's like, you know, we can shoot this while we shoot AVG, we can shoot VGA while we shoot AVG. I can just, if I just get the ball rolling, I'm not so sure, and I'm actually absolutely sure that I can't switch gears like that. And so it's pretty important, I think, in these next few months that we transition and become dedicated specifically to AVG. We'll still do some shows here. We'll still do our important Patreon award rewards, including movie nights with the guys. But the shows that we do here should be probably focused on, you know, shows with the boys, foreplays, things like that, major shows, but trying not to do as many as Becky and I are usually doing, especially in the last few months. We went like crazy, of course, like we always do in the fall season. If you see us broadcasting over the next few months, it'll be because we're using it as a break. We're taking a break. I'm procrastinating. I'm playing maybe some Overwatch, or maybe we're getting through our Red Dead Redemption playthrough, but we're going to really, basically this is a really long-winded way of saying that we're going to really try to focus on AVG. So let's talk about Japan and where I see the show going. A huge amount of my time and my, my daily thought processes are dedicated to visualizing our new life and where we're going with it and how the show fits into that and how everything else we want to do fits into that. And I want to just kind of spill my brain for you, for those who are interested, and tell you about how some of you who watched me, my lonesomes during the Christmas shows, will have been privy to some of my my spitballing. I've made it, every so often I mention that there may be a format change in the show. that perhaps the green screen will be discarded, perhaps the couch. The couch probably, no, the couch isn't going to go because we're always going to be sitting on a couch. It's going to be cozy. The whole idea in my head is getting it cozier and more relaxed, for me especially, to be on the show. I think that I've had a great, over the course of the last couple of years, I've become more relaxed on the show as the show became more turnkey. And I want that. The more relaxed I can be, the better. I want to have something that is potentially a little bit simpler a setup, but also still high quality, well lit, with good quality cameras and capture and everything. And we're still going to include you guys on the show, but there's a potential that green screen may go away depending on space. The thing is with this green screen, and oh, by the way, studio tour will happen before we move. We have to say goodbye to it. I'm sorry, studio tour never came. Here's why the studio tour never came. I never felt like it was done. It always felt like a project that was never done, and it didn't ever feel right to show it yet. And it always felt like it was like messy or something. Like it was like, I could tidy this up and then I'll do it. It just became a thing because it was never really done. Pieces were always being added, things were being moved around. And I guess now we can say it's officially done because we're going to be packing it up. So anyways, the whole point is the green screen and the lights required to light it are really substantial and large, and it requires a large space, potentially a large space that we might not even be able to acquire in a Japanese apartment. Well, we will be getting a house, a detached house, but we may need to make some sacrifices. And I'm just wanting to get that out there now. But I'm not dedicated to that idea. We might still go back. For all I know, we will get a place that's big enough. I'll be aiming for it, and we might be able to get the exact same setup as we had before. I am potentially, instead of a couch, a kotatsu. And these little, and kotatsu chairs, which are like little chairs that sit on the floor, and a kotatsu is like a coffee table that has like a heater underneath and a blanket. I'm going for cozy. I want it to feel like a hangout as it always has. The show is like about hanging out and feeling cozy and playing some video games. It's not pro gaming, MLG dick, grow your dick styles, like, even though that's how I marketed it in the early days. Let me have a sip of coffee and a break. I might be getting sick. Becky may have imported some sickness from home. So the boys aren't going to be on the show. Obviously, we can't take them to Japan. However, we may get them teleconferenced in every so often. And potential, I'm not making any promises, but there's a potential return of something in the vein of like full screen Minecraft, or, you know, other shows that allow the boys to play a character on screen as opposed to appear in a camera, maybe something like that. I'm just like throwing out ideas. I do want to get them to Japan at some point and be on the show. As guests and as my guest in Japan, and like then go out and film them in Japan as well. How are we gonna, but the fact is, day to day, the show, there will be a lot less of the guys. Ways that I see that we might sort of mitigate that, or like, how will we fill that void, that gap? How will the show change? First of all, one thing, I think because Awesome Piece Theaters won't include the boys anymore, Becky and I may do more Awesome Piece Theaters instead. So instead of getting one big one with us, you might get more. Becky and I want to try to get into anime. Kind of a funny thing. We don't watch anime. We've never really watched anime outside of like 4 seasons of Naruto way back in the day. Maybe we'll do some anime Awesome Piece Theaters just as, like, you know, we're learning Japanese. Maybe it'd be a good way to practice our Japanese. And I know that a lot of you are anime fans, but it is kind of weird for somebody to be moving to Japan and become such a Japanophile or a weeb, if you want to call it that, as I've become, without caring or watching much anime. Oh, Attack on Titan too, we love that. But we'll probably watch a lot more stuff, I think, and Awesome Piece Theaters with our patrons and turbos. So there's that. In addition, I want to focus a bit more on cooperative games. That I think that those were a big hit on our show, and I'm not even sure why we haven't covered more of them. I would like to do more co-op games, couples co-op games with Becky, and I think that that will add an extra little flavor. Obviously, when we get to Japan, we're going to kick off a new Phoenix Wright long haul. I think that the one Miles Edgeworth Mysteries or whatever that Investigations is on the docket for our next game. Potentially Ghost Trick instead. I'm not sure yet though. The other big benefit to a more casual setup, and maybe even one that's not in a studio but in our house, we're, by the way, looking for a house that's 3 stories so that each story will be like living space, bedroom, and potentially basement would be the studio, so that everything is separated like this. And anyways, I'm expecting that you'll be able to see the cats on the show, that the kitties will come by more often, or I mean at all. You will see the kitties. The only time we've ever had a kitty on the show is when Lisa showed up in the back alley. So that will be a thing as well. What I want in a setup when I get there is something that allows us to do not only Video Games Awesome, but to also do shows for another channel where we'll be focusing on Japanese stuff. Like, well, I'm not even sure how I'm going to divvy up the content. I know that we want to do produced shows where we talk about Japan at like a table, maybe even show like Japanese things, or just discuss Japanese things and call it Japan Awesome or something like that. On the other hand, we're also going to be doing those travel vlogs, which I think should go on another channel. And those will be like vlog format and distinctly different from what we do on this show. Like I said, a lot of what I've been doing has been brainstorming and trying to come up with where I think and how we're going to do all this and how it fits in to what we currently do and how I shuffle things around. By the way, you may have noticed our website has become sort of derelict. Haven't been updating it in a while. It became a thing where I fell behind and then it just seemed insurmountable to catch up again. It's not insurmountable, but to be frank, I don't see a value in updating it right now because I'm about to replace it. The forum will still keep going. We'll always have a Turbo forum. In fact, I'm thinking of making it Turbo only at some point in the future. But I'm going to redesign the site into something that basically is just a simple site that points to our social media channels and where you can watch us and where you can watch us live, maybe an about section, something like that. Nothing elaborate, just something simple and to the point, because, you know, when it comes down to it, that's where everybody's interacting with us, is on Twitter, on YouTube and Twitch when you watch us live, and maybe we're going to try to get into that old Instagram thing or something like that, especially if we're going to be doing travel vlogs. I don't fucking know. But yeah, so that's that. And to go back to that point, Turbo only forum at some point. This is something I've been thinking of for a while, and I think that one of the biggest values of being a Turbo is this closed community feeling. That I think that a lot of Turbos, when they go to post something like, you know, Turbo game meetup or something, like let's get together in this game and play, or, you know, there's like a Turbo book club going and things like that. And I know that a lot of Turbos sort of like agonize over the decision, like, do I just go Turbo only? Do I go to the Turbo forum only, or do I make this a public post? Do I exclude people who aren't a Turbo or something like that? And I think that the reason that Turbos gravitate towards the Turbo forum and that exclusivity is that while it's not a guarantee that if you paid for membership that you're a good person or somebody to interact with, it's more well assured that at least you can be certain that this person, for the duration of their membership, probably hasn't done anything shitty, you know, because they'd be kicked out. And so I think that there's some safety people find in that, and some solace in that these are people dedicated to one community and are of reasonably like-mindedness. If they can enjoy content created by us, if they like my sense of humor, then everybody probably might get along. And that's, I think, the real reason. And I don't see a real need for a non-Turbo forum, considering how accessible I am on Twitter and how people can interact with me there. So I'm not even on the Turbo forums, frankly. I let that community auto-pilot itself. Becky goes on there. But anyways, what were the other things I wanted to talk about? Covered the Turbo tease, covered our trip to Japan. That's pretty much it, I suppose, and we're just gearing up to really go hard at AVG, and I wanted to let you guys know that, and thank you for an amazing year. I know I've forgotten something, though. I know it. Let me have another sip of coffee, and we'll just hang out here for a second. No, I think that's it. Oh, and I guess just as a side update, our visas for Japan are currently being worked on by an amazing agency that we've partnered up with in Japan. So we're not going to be alone. We're not going to be two lonely Canadians in Japan just trying to fend for ourselves. We actually have people working on our side over there. And I'm going to talk more about those guys in the coming months because I really love these guys and I can't wait for you to meet them. So yeah, maybe in the comments, just tell me how you visualize the show going into the future, what your fears are potentially about the move to Japan, what your hopes are, and what, because this is a big time. It's coming, and it's coming probably sooner than we had originally announced. We're looking at somewhere around June instead of August at this point instead, so near E3. Speaking to that format, by the way, we're thinking, like, I mean, it's potential that we'll leave after E3 or before E3. I'm not sure exactly yet. It's kind of dependent on a lot of different factors, but about that new show format, at the very worst, we will be taste testing it. You know, whether the normal setup comes back or not, there will be a time where it isn't this setup. It will be us in a box, in a camera, and a gaming. Like, we want to hit the ground running. We want to be doing shows as soon as we get there. And so that's going to require us to sort of change the format for a short time. So at the very least, we're going to try it on for size. Whether we like it or not, we have to try out a new format because I can't set up a brand new green screen format in an Airbnb when we get there, which is how we'll be living for the first couple months, at least while we look for a perfect place to do the show in and to live. And I guess another thing I should mention is that while in Japan, there's potential that we'll have guests that aren't the boys. One of the things that I want to concentrate on a new format, a lighter setup, a more simple setup, is potentially something that's run by laptops and portable capture cards, and a system that I can move from place to place, something that I can take potentially to developer studios within Japan and do shows with developers, kind of like how our first ever trip to Japan involved Inti Creates with Igarashi and the Bloodstained Kickstarter. That was, for me, a pretty proud moment in which we were able, on 24 hours notice, basically, to pack up shop and take the show there. I took a mixing soundboard, all my cameras, capture cards, laptops, and with the help of some amazing work by Nulani on the technical side, we were able to pipe out a show that I want to potentially, it was exciting, and I think I'd like to do something like that into the future. And who knows, we might get our resident Japanese turbo Yusuke to appear sometimes on the show. I don't know. I'm not promising that. I wouldn't put that on him. I wouldn't, like, force him. Who knows, though? Like, he's a funny guy. He's a fun guy. So maybe something like that. And we've met lots of really cool people over there. Maybe I'll have some other guests by. So there's that. But I'll try to answer any questions or talk to you guys in the comments today as you think of things. And I'm sure there's things I've missed that I'd like to clarify for you as well. I'll leave you with the fact that I've never felt more excited or happy in my life for the potential that the future holds and what we have in store for us. Not just Becky and I, but you guys as well. Like I said, we're taking you with us, and I understand that some of you won't like these changes, and that's fine. And some of you may even grow apart from the show. And I hope that you'll come back one day, potentially, that you'll find a place in the community again. If you do find yourself drifting away, but that's okay. We're going to, grow closer to some of you too, and we're going to find new audience as well. There's a yin and yang to it. But regardless, I'm just rambling, but thank you. All right, guys. Happy New Year.